Hey there, everybody. This is Josh Martinez with the spoiler review coming at you from work. If you couldn't tell, I am inside my 1994 Ford Taurus. Totally awesome, I know. Um, yeah, the last 2.5 hours I'm at work, I sit in my car and do nothing. Jealous? You should be. I know what you're thinking. Josh, why would you leave a MacBook in your car for 6 hours while you're inside and leaving your car unprotected? Well, I didn't. I brought my nifty new, well, not really new, but it's my flip camera that I bought in February while Circuit City was closing down. Got it for 80 bucks while it was still 140. Now I know I can get like a super awesome HD one now for probably around the same price, but whatever. I got this for cheap and I'm happy with it. So yesterday I had the day off from work. I went to the movies. I saw Drag Me to Hell, which in my opinion was a completely awesome movie. Now, if you went to see this movie because you thought it was going to be a super awesome PG-13 horror movie, once again, nobody has hit the holy grail of getting 13-year-old viewers and a super scary movie at the same time, but this does double as a pretty good comedy. Whether or not it was meant to be a comedy, at the same time is debatable. Guy directed the Evil Dead films, so possible. Also, the special effects in Drag Me to Hell were so bad, they made the special effects from X-Men Origins Wolverine look awesome. If you didn't get a chance to see X-Men Origins, I don't recommend it. If it's still in theaters anywhere at some smaller theaters, don't spend the money on it. Wait until it comes out on DVD and ends up in the, $5 bin, because that's really all that movie was worth, viewing it multiple times. But I'm not here to talk about that movie. Here today to talk about Drag Me to Hell. So if you didn't already know, Drag Me to Hell is about a woman, Christine Brown, who works for the bank. She denies Mrs. Ganesh a extension on her loan, gets her kicked out of her house and all of her shit repossessed, just so she can impress her boss and, get ahead on her promotion to assistant bank manager, which is so fucking cool. Huge douchebag move, right? So you think when she gets a curse put on her after getting her ass kicked by Mrs. Ganesh, a 70-plus-year-old woman, I might add, you'd sit there and think, well, maybe a curse involving her getting sent to hell for eternity, maybe a little much, but she kind of had something coming to her. So anyway, after the attack, Christine goes, gets picked up by her boyfriend, and for whatever reason, their boyfriend parked in front of a psychic, so she goes, hey, I need to see a psychic to see what the fuck is going on, if this thing is real. Psychic reads her hand, freaks out, and then he's like, okay, that's enough for tonight. They go home. Christine gets beat up by a fucking ghost. Boyfriend comes home, says she's just kind of, doing it to herself because of post-traumatic stress disorder, because she's a vagina. Yeah, she got beat up by a 70-plus-year-old woman. So anyway, they go to bed together, and Christine's, asleep. Fly flies up her nose and then out the other side, and then it goes into her mouth and into her stomach. She wakes up because she's like fucking choking on it or something. She lays back down. Crazy old lady sleeping right next to her. She jumps on her, climbs on top of her, and vomits maggots all over her. Now, I was slightly amused by that. Actually, I was laughing while everybody else was, reeling back with disgust because apparently those maggots were too real for them. But, not for me. I mean, like I said, special effects in this movie were complete and utter bullshit. So the next morning, Christine goes over to the reference house that Mrs. Ganesh had listed, which is her daughter's house, and tries to set things right and says, oh yeah, I'm going to work with the bank and try to make things all better. Her daughter's like, oh, you're going to make things all better, huh? You're going to make this all go away. She's like, okay, well, yeah, come in. You can see her. So she points her downstairs. Christine goes downstairs, and everybody is, seems like they're having a party. She finds Mrs. Ganesh. Yeah, she's in a casket. She's dead. Can't take it back now. So after some stuff happens, she knocks over the casket. The body falls on her. Embalming fluid. Mouth to mouth. Absolutely disgusting. No shitty special effects required. So after that embarrassing wake, a bunch of stuff happens. She goes back to the psychic. Psychic says, oh, there's a way. You have to channel it into somebody and she can help you out. I just need $10,000 by tomorrow morning. So Christine goes home, finds a bunch of crap in the house to pawn off, and while she's grabbing some ice skates, she hears something from behind a blanket in the shed. So she goes over, opens it. Crazy Mrs. Ganesh's soul comes out and starts choking her. So luckily she had an ice skater in her hand, and then luckily Again, she spots a rope tied to something next to her, so she follows the rope up. It's connected to a pulley, and then she follows it down from the pulley, and guess what? There's an anvil right over Mrs. Ganesh's head. And I'm not talking like super real looking anvil, I'm saying this thing was fucking cartoony, and it was great. She just reaches over with a skate, slices the rope, smashes Mrs. Ganesh's head, her eyes come flying out and land all over her face. Again, crappy special effects, but it was pretty awesome. So she pawns off her stuff, only gets $3,800, and then she's sitting there crying, eating ice cream. Boyfriend comes home and says, yeah, don't worry about it. I paid the guy the $10,000 for this whole thing. So they go to a medium lady from the beginning of the movie that I didn't talk about because I didn't want this video to be 20 minutes long. So she tries to channel the spirit into her so she can put it in a goat, and then they can kill the goat. Basically, long story short for this entire thing, the whole thing fails and the old lady dies. And then, funny part, they're taking the medium that helped them out away on a stretcher, but she's not in a body bag. She's in a blanket that looks like a straitjacket, and they're not putting her into an ambulance. They're putting her into one of those Ford E350 rape vans with no windows on the side. So after that observation I made, listened to a nice corny monologue about, oh, it was her last day of life and she finally got to defeat the demon that she promised that she would someday. And then the psychic guy that helped her was like, oh yeah, that thing's not dead. It's actually just kind of went away from here for now. You're still pretty much fucked. But hey, there's another way to get rid of it that I didn't tell you before because I didn't want to be responsible for sending somebody else to hell. Just take the item that this old lady cursed and give it to somebody else. Simple enough, right? Wrong. So psychic guy puts it in an envelope and says, here, give this to somebody as a gift. That's good. It's kind of like Christmas, since it's all wrapped up and everything. Except you're going to hell. So she's getting a ride home from her boyfriend, and he slams on the brakes because he almost hits an old guy. Papers go flying everywhere. She drops the envelope on the floor, completely forgets about it for whatever reason, and drives home. She's like, oh crap, I need to find my envelope. And she starts digging around on the floor, picks it up. She's like, okay, got it. So after she gets dropped off, she leaves, goes, sits at a restaurant forever, drinks a bunch of coffee. She's tapping the envelope, wondering who to give it to. So in the end, she finds a loophole where she, figures out that she can give it back to Mrs. Ganesh, digs up her grave while it's raining, puts it in her mouth, basically giving it to her as a gift. Can't climb out, eventually gets hit in the head with a headstone, gets kind of knocked out for a little bit, but not really. Swims above the water, gets out, blah, blah, blah. Happy ending, curse is over, right? Here's where I ruin the entire ending of the movie for you. So earlier in the flick, she finds a super rare coin for her boyfriend at the bank. She puts it in a white envelope and gives it to him. And when she drops her envelope on the floor, when they slam on the brakes, it mixes in with his papers. She grabs the wrong one. So she gave Mrs. Ganesh the one with the coin in it. And so she didn't really give away the button as a gift. And she wound up with the button again, which was the cursed item. And she falls off a train platform. There's a train coming towards her. But luckily for her, she doesn't get hit by a train. Hell opens up and she gets dragged to hell. And that's pretty much it. If you're still curious about the movie, I still recommend that you go see it. I know I just ruined the end for you, but trust me, if you couldn't see it coming throughout the rest of the movie, you're probably not a very active movie watcher. And if you're not an active movie watcher, what are you doing spending between $6 and $11.50, depending on where you live, going to the movies? Wait until it comes out and rent it. But anyway, even if you're not into cheap scares and crappy special effects, I highly recommend seeing this movie. It's so much fun to watch, and I think everybody would enjoy it, even if, you're one of those hardcore, everything's got to be super awesome in my movies or else I'm gonna fucking hate it people. This is Josh Martinez for the spoiler review, and I've just ruined your movie.